I'll do as I normally do. I'll do a quick recap of what we did last time. Obviously, we had a bit of a break over the summer.
Let me mute myself.
Before the summer, this is kind of what we did. The last session was all about creating that retreat space where we could be quiet to hear the Lord, so we could get rid of distractions, demand, and disturbance, and focus on building relationships, refreshing, reflection, and revelation. So that's kind of what we worked on. And I'm just going to see if I can change the layout a second. So that's what we did last time. And today, this is what we're going to focus on. So we're going to look at how God speaks to our wheelhouse, okay? And I'm just going to explain a little bit about what that means. So your wheelhouse, you probably may have heard the term. It's about your area of expertise or interest or familiarity, something that is in your scope of ability, okay, or your scope of best ability. Now, this session came about, and I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm a bit of a writer. That's what I do for one of my jobs. I do writing, and one night I was lying in bed, just not starting to go to sleep, and I started hearing a story, word for word, as if it was written down in a novel or something like that. And I heard the title first, and then the story started to be told. So I sat up and I just wrote a few things down, then lay down, and the story continued. Sat up, I wrote a bit more, and I just kept going like that. And then I went to sleep, and the next day I took that and I wrote it into a full story. And then it was just a short story about not too long, about 2,000 words. But the whole story started just as I was nodding off. It just came out of nowhere. It wasn't like I was thinking about it. It was just like being downloaded. And I just thought, wow, that was really cool. And then the afternoon of that same day, I was just watching some video testimony podcast thing on YouTube. And there was this guy being interviewed by this Christian TV company, Christian channel in America, and this guy was talking about loads of things, but then he said how with his finances, he's quite a wealthy man and does a lot of things for the kingdom with that finance. And he said that way back years ago, the Lord told him and his wife they had some money to invest, and he told them to invest in Tesla. And this was way back when everyone was laughing at Tesla. That's ridiculous. What a stupid idea. An electric car. It's like a milk crate, one of those milk buggies that go around in the morning, the little electric ones. And electric cars had been tried and tested, and they just weren't up to scratch. So back then they were thinking that's a stupid move, but they obeyed God and they did it. And they invested what little they had. And then fast forward, they reaped the reward of that, and it's obviously worth a lot more now. And they got that, and they sowed that back into the kingdom, and God kept telling them, invest in this, invest in that, and would tell them what to do with their finances. And I kind of got a bit pouty. I was listening to this and I got a bit pouty. I said, God, why don't you tell me what to do with my family? Why don't you tell me what to invest in? You could have told me to invest in Apple or something like that. I got really pouty and like, So I'm just, sulking away. And I just hear the Lord say, well, because I speak to you in your wheelhouse. And that's what he said to me. And it kind of really made me stop and think, like, well, what do you mean? What does that even look like? And then he reminded me that the night before, he had given me a story to write. He told me this title and this lovely little story. And I thought, oh, yeah. And he does that a lot. If I'm stuck in my writing, I'll ask him, what can I do here? I've got a bit of writer's block. I don't know where to take this. How do I get over it? And within minutes, sometimes the answer comes, a solution comes, and it flows again. So he speaks to me a lot about that. And he speaks to me about other things that are my area of expertise. I'm a teacher, so when I'm working with students and there's an issue with a student or there's a topic they're not understanding, often I'll go to God. How do I explain this to them? How do I deal with this issue? Or whether it's a pastoral issue or anything, those are the sorts of things that I can go to God and he'll speak to me about. But I am not a financier. I am not a big investor. I am not a mathematician. Numbers, I'm a words person. Numbers are over there. I'm here with my words and I'm happy with them. So God's not going to speak to me about where to invest my money unless he really wants me to do something. And obviously, I'll ask him, we do ask, Simon and I do ask, how we should deal with our money. And obviously we're obedient to that, but not to this level. When I say they invested a little bit, their little bit was a lot. It wasn't just, like £50 or something. They invested a big chunk of their money. So that's kind of where this all came from, was this idea that sometimes God doesn't always speak to us about things he'll speak to other people about. So God doesn't always speak to everyone all the time about investing in this and investing in that. But he will speak to us about the things that are attached to who he created us to be. Okay. So I want to talk about some examples in scripture where we see the Lord speaking to people's wheelhouse. And the title here, The Fisherman and the Shepherd, you can see straight away that that's two types of expertise that are talked about in scripture quite a lot. So this one in Luke 5, this is where Jesus is kind of seeing the disciples, isn't he? So one day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put it out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he was finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, we'll let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats up on shore and left everything and followed him. So what I love about this is that these men who've been working hard all night, knowing what they know how to fish, that this is their livelihood. They're skilled people. They know how to fish. And they haven't had the most successful night. And so it's just like that. They just know what it's like. So they've come in and they're just finished for the night. And then here comes Jesus and said, "Here's a strategy for you. Here's something to try." And they're like, "Oh, is that going to work? But okay, I'm just going to do it because you've said." And what they got was just unbelievable. But he also spoke to them and said at the end there, "You'll fish for people." And he spoke to them in a metaphorical sense, something that they could understand. Now it's interesting this, because I was thinking about this over a year ago, and I just got a picture from the Lord of 2 fishermen by a river, and one had a line, a fishing rod and bait, and was kind of throwing the bait in the river, and the other had a net. And I just felt the Lord say, when he said this, "From now on you'll fish people," was he talking to the net fisher or the line fisher? And obviously it was the net fisher. And too often, I think sometimes we can think like the line fishers, where we put a bit of bait out there and hope we get a catch, when actually what Jesus wants us to do is wrap ourselves around people and bring them into our lives in that way. And that's how we fish. We wrap, obviously nets just scoop up and bring in, don't they? So that was kind of what I got from that metaphor. And I'm not a fisherman or fisherwoman, but these guys were. So he spoke to them in fishing terms. "You'll fish for men," which I just think is brilliant. And then there's another story involving fish, which I love as well. And this is in Matthew 17. After Jesus and his disciples arrived at Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma temple tax came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" Yes, he does, he replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. What do you think, Simon? He asked. From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others? From others, Peter answered. Then children are exempt, Jesus said to him. But so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line. So this time he is line fishing. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours. So again, this is in fishing terms, Jesus is telling him where to go to get a provision. And it's really interesting that Simon and I were discussing this. Simon, my husband, not Simon in the Bible. Simon and I were discussing this, and Simon made the comment that, Jesus pointed him towards his skill set to get what it was that was needed to pay the tax. He didn't send him off to glean in the fields or, wherever, what are the, to go and the vineyards and open a grape and find some money in there. He sent him to fish. So that's where he found his provisions, was in the things that God's put in his hands to do. And the thing that was his wheelhouse. So I think that's just really, really interesting as well. And then we have King David, the shepherd king. And here he's talking very much in shepherding terms to understand. And this is it's not just his song. This has so much prophetic essence in it, so much beauty that we can apply to our lives as well, because there's so much truth in it. So the Lord is my shepherd. And David understood all about shepherding. And so this prophetic allows us to experience and understand how the Lord kind of tends to us and looks after us and cares for us. He makes us lie down. Sometimes he forces us into positions of rest when we're just going 100 miles an hour. And quiet waters, he refreshes our soul and guides us along paths. And all of these things that David spoke about as a king, because he was a shepherd, he understood what it was about shepherding and how to relate that to his Father God. And so we can see here, just from those few examples, how God doesn't just speak the same thing to everyone. He doesn't just speak one thing and that's it, and everyone needs to understand that, but he speaks to us in a way that we can understand. And we talked way back in I can't remember which month it was, when we talked about how Jesus was speaking, and we talked about the metaphors that he used, the symbolism, and how he talked about farming terms and things like that. So we talked a little bit about that, because he makes it relatable and understandable for us. There we go. So like you understand, we can understand fishing terms if we were fishers, and shepherding was David's. He spoke to me in stories, in metaphors, in pictures, because that is my wheelhouse, definitely. And if he spoke to me in maths terms, yes, I would definitely be confused. If I've heard stories about people who get full equations and things downloaded into their head from God, and it's the solution to something that they have the capacity to work in, like, they've got connections or they're working in something, and it works. And I just think, if he spoke to me in math terms, I'd just be so confused. I wouldn't know what to do with it, where to go with it, or anything. So yeah, I'm glad he doesn't speak to me in math terms. So what I wanted today's session to do was to have a very practical element. Okay, so obviously every week, every month, we have something practical, but this is going to be a little bit of an extension, so it's going to be quite practical. So I want us to just delve into exploring our own individual positions, identities, wheelhouses, so that we can begin to hear God more specifically in those areas. Okay, so have a little bit of fun with this as well. So for the first one, I just want us to think about a job that you could have, any job in the world. So if it might not even be a job that exists. You know, like if you were told you're going to get a check every month for the amount of money that you need to pay all your bills, it's just going to come guaranteed. All you need to do is pick what you want to do as a job to get that check. What job would you want to do? What would you want to spend your time doing? I know exactly what I would want to do. So just think about, why is it that you would want that job? You know, like, why? What is it about, well, that job that makes you want to be able to do that? Okay. And like I say, it doesn't even have to be a job that exists. It's just, what would you want to do with all of your time? All right. So I'm going to just pop a 3-minute timer on. You can have a bit of a think. You don't have to feed anything back. You can jot some notes down if you want to. Okay. So just begin to think and have some fun with it as well. Okay. All right. 3 minutes. Okay, so hopefully you had a little bit of time to think there. I'll just give you what I wrote down. Those of you who know Simon and I well probably aren't surprised by this at all. So, if I could have any job in the world, it would be a job uh, building and running a retreat center with growing our own garden, our own vegetables and things like that. And working with my hands, helping people, feeding people, and obviously spending some time writing as well, because I love writing. And the reason is I love watching things grow, absolutely love both things that I plant and also watching people grow. I love being creative and I love inspiring people. So those are the reasons why I would love to do that as a job. And hopefully in the near future, we will be doing that as a job. So that's kind of, obviously it doesn't always have to be an actual job, but it's what would you want to spend your time doing and why, and understanding that about ourselves is quite important in understanding who God made us to be. So this next one, I've given us 3 minutes again, just because I want us to really, I guess, delve deep and really consider 3 things. And I've limited it to 3 because if you get more than that, it can become a bit overwhelming. So just 3 things that you either enjoy doing or that you feel you have a great deal of knowledge about or real interest in. Okay, so just 3 things. And yeah, you just kind of, I guess, using this time to think about what it is potentially that you enjoy about those things, or why you are interested in those things, or how you became an expert in whatever area it is. Okay, all right, so 3 minutes just to kind of have a bit of a think and jot some things down. Okay, hopefully you've all had a bit of a think about all the things you really like. I kind of spiraled out like almost like a spider diagram on one of mine and put all the things that are like related that I enjoy, as it goes out. And I kind of figure that the core is I love stories. So I love writing them, I love reading them, I love teaching them. I'm an English teacher, but I love hearing other people's stories. I love sitting and listening to someone telling me something that they've done or something that's happened to them, or something they're planning or anything like that. I'm loving Sarah ringing me and telling me all the adventures she's having in Korea, because I love people's stories. I love hearing someone's history as well. So I think that's the nub of it. In the middle is stories. That makes all this other stuff interesting to me. So that's where I went. Okay, now the last little mini 3 minutes is might be a hard one. I think some people can struggle with this one. So, but it's also a really healthy one to do. Write down 3 things about yourself that describe your nature or personality that you love about yourself. You know, things that you love about yourself that would describe who you are, your nature, your personality. I'm going to throw out a couple that I love about Simon. Simon's nature is he is so gentle and so compassionate. And he's really funny as well. So that's about Simon, though. But you can just, things about yourself that you love. Okay, so your nature and personality. So not physical things like I love my eyes as much as you might like your own eyes. Let's just think about more of our natures and our who we are in our course. Okay, so 3 minutes just to kind of have a think, and you can spiral out of that as well. Why you love that about yourself, if you want, you can just really dig deep into your own self. Okay, 3 minutes. Okay. So that was it's quite difficult, even though there's a lot I like about myself. I think it's quite hard just to narrow down 3 things that I really treasure. But yeah, managed that one. Hopefully you all did as well. So the reason we've done those exercises is just to kind of gather together a few insights about ourselves that we can reflect on as individuals. And our wheelhouse is not, it's not just about your job. Sometimes a person's job will reflect their wheelhouse, because obviously that's what you naturally would lean towards. So if you like if you like, children and being around children all the time, you might become a primary school teacher or something like that. If you are really caring and just always concerned about the welfare of other people, you might get into something like being a nurse or a healthcare assistant or something like that. That might just be where you naturally lean. If you like writing, then of course you're going to become a writer, aren't you? But that doesn't necessarily mean that the job you're doing now is in your wheelhouse, but it also doesn't mean that the job you're doing now is the wrong job for you if it's not in your wheelhouse. It's just about understanding how our minds work and understanding how God works within that capacity as well. Okay. I think thinking about what your perfect job would be, what ideal job you would want, is a good way of starting to understand, well, how does my mind actually work? Where would I feel like I would thrive? What it is about at its core is our identity, who God made us to be. We know in Psalm 139, it tells us that God knit us together in the womb. He knows exactly who he made. And that is what our identity, our unique individual identity in him. So do we know our identity in him? Do we know who God made us to be? And there's the generic that applies to everyone. We're a child of God, co-heir with Christ, a royal priesthood. But then there's also the really unique, what did God make you to be? How did God wire you? Sarah, who's obviously in a cafe or something now, we often talk about how God just made her to travel. I could think of nothing worse. I mean, I like my feet on the ground. I'm a home bird. I love just being home and with my dog, with my plants, with my, that's where I thrive. But Sarah was made to travel. She was made to go places on mission, and that's how she's been put together. And that's how I've been put together. We're both children of God. We're both co-heirs with Christ, but we've been made, and God knit us together for our own unique identity. And it's just wonderful to live in that fully, rather than just kind of doing what everyone expects us to do or what we think we should be doing, but to live in who God made us to be. Okay. So this is another kind of thing to think about. What sort of things do you find yourself daydreaming about? What catches your attention? What captures your heart? Is there something you'll see in the news or something you'll see somewhere that just breaks your heart or just gets you excited or makes you come alive? Things like that might be an indication of what your wheelhouse is. There's certain things, when you're scrolling through reels on Instagram, mine, I laugh because I say to Simon that mine are just a repeat of woodworking, DIY, cooking, and farming, and it just cycles through those, and I just watch all of these. But there's some that I'm just like, oh, I could watch that. There is one more as well which I love watching, and that's rug cleaning. I don't know why, it's an obsession a lot of people have, but we just watch rugs being cleaned, and it's so nice and relaxing, and it makes me feel nice and calm. I think that's what I do when I need to wind down. I'm not going to run off and become a rug cleaner, but maybe God will speak to me about something in that because I've watched so many, and it's, is it in my wheelhouse now? But there are things that catch my attention when I'm scrolling. I just think, oh, I want to stay there. I love cooking for people. Simon is the same. We love feeding people. So when I see something being cooked, I'm watching it going, oh, I can't wait to have a go at making that. It really catches my attention. Okay. And I think that's kind of a little bit of who God's made me to be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of do a little bit of a prophetic act now. Okay. So I'm going to, again, just 3 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes, and we're just going to picture Jesus. We're going to picture him maybe sitting with us, sitting beside us, sitting in front of us, sitting in the room. If there's another chair in the room that you maybe want to imagine Jesus is sitting in. And then all of those things that you've just been doing, those 3 different lists, what you love about yourself, what your ideal job would be, what catches your attention, all of these things, you're going to hand that list to him. And then you're going to say to him, who do you say I am? You're going to ask him what your identity is from all those things that you've just written down. And it might even be something that's not even related to the list, but just spend that 3 minutes ask him the question and then allow him to speak. Just be quiet and give him the space to speak to your heart. Okay, so 3 minutes, off you go. Okay. So I am going to ask if anyone wants to feedback on that. Is anyone willing to share anything that they feel the Lord has spoken?
So yeah, I just felt like God saying to me, "You're in it." You know, like everything I've written,
Yeah.
um, like yeah, he's like, "You're in it. This is it," you know. And I keep hearing him saying to me for a while. He keeps telling me, "Woman of integrity." And that's the name he said I've given to you. You know, that is your name, woman of integrity. That is one of your identities. And obviously I know it's traveling,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. I'd say to Rachel, like, I doubt it sometimes. You know, some things haven't gone as I expected, or you know, as smooth. And Rachel's just my go-to when I go to her and I break down to her and everything. I'm like, "Oh, Rachel, I'm coming home." And she's like, "No, you're not." And I have doubted, like, is this where I'm supposed to be? Have I misunderstood my assignment? This is my calling, right? And yeah, I'm at the beginning of it. This is it, yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
you know, like all the questions you ask, like, you know, the three things,
Yeah,
it's exactly what I'm doing. Like everything, all the answers are consistent there. It's everything I'm doing right now, you know. I can't imagine doing anything else. I don't want to do anything else, you
that's
know.
that is
Yeah,
that's so exciting though. That's so cool. And what's really interesting as well is that obviously having followed your journey over the last few months, the things that God has been speaking to you about, he's been speaking to you in these terms. Like he's been talking to you about going on an aeroplane and talking about how that is stepping into your ministry and how you have to have this rest period while you're on the aeroplane. You were just having to rest, weren't you, in that
mm,
vision that the Lord gave you, and you will know
yeah,
there's a period of rest before you get to where you're
yeah,
doing things, and you were like fighting it, weren't you? Like, oh, I just
yeah,
but like God was speaking to you in plane terms, wasn't he? Aeroplanes and traveling and suitcases
yeah.
and your luggage, all these things he was giving you were all in your wheelhouse, weren't they? They were all symbolism,
Yes,
sense to you. So
exactly.
it's really, really.
So that's my wheelhouse. What would I say then my wheelhouse is? The plane,
So it's all. I think it's all things to do with travel and
travel.
yeah, and then your ministry that God's given you as well, that He's put on your heart. Those sorts of things, like women and women's
Yeah,
ministry, those are the sort of things that you're becoming more experienced in. So yeah. So that's all. It's all connected. You did the degree in counselling as well, so you've got all of that skill set in terms of worldly qualification, which God's going to use as well to help you step into what He's calling you to. So it's all in your wheelhouse. Yeah, it's very exciting.
yeah,
Yeah. That's so awesome. And a woman of integrity, that's just like beautiful as well. You don't forget it. That's awesome. Would anyone else like to share anything?
Trying to figure out how to unmute myself on my phone. Sorry. Um, I'll like go back and think about all these prompts, but um, I felt like in the last one, when I asked Jesus, um, what was the question exactly again? It was
Like,
who
who do you say I am?
who do you say I am? Yes. Um, he said the word he said two things. The first one I'll have to think about because I'm not sure what it actually is. But I mean,
No, it's God when you're like, what does that word mean?
um, the first word he said was revelator. And the second word he said was world changer.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I don't know what revelator means exactly. Um, so I'll just have to meditate on that
Yeah.
and think
I
about
mean,
that.
when you said that, immediately I was like, yeah, that's so true. That's so Leah. So
Really? I know that
yeah, I'm
was
like,
the
yeah,
word.
that's so Leah. Yeah, yeah.
I don't even, I'm like, I'll have to Google the definition.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So,
Anyway, so that was the few words or the couple words that I felt. And yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. The I felt like I got lots of things in each prompt. So it was really helpful
Yeah.
for me. Yeah. So anyway, I could say more, but I won't. Just leave it at that.
Well, I heard I'm a diamond, and then he said, you were a diamond in the rough, but I've honed you and polished you, and now you shine. And I just thought, oh, that's so beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And then he said, similarly, he said, you're a young whippersnapper. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have to look up that. What does that mean? I'm a young whippersnapper. So, yeah, I like the young bit, although that is my surname as well. But yeah, I like the young bit. I don't know what a whippersnapper is, so I'm going to have to.
I have no idea. I'm gonna have to Google that. Whippersnapper.
That's fun. Anyone else want to share anything?
Come on, lads.
There's Sarah calling us out. Dan, what about you? Did you get anything, or
Yeah, Mum, what you picking on me for?
do my brother and I can?
I've just felt Jesus say, I'm a son, I'm loved. That was the and yeah, I think I kind of know the years that what God's calling me to is, inner child advocate. I think that's a big one. I think I really want to. I see people. I seem to see the worst of society, the worst of history, and the worst of society with eyes of, well, God, they certainly can't be beyond redemption. And this is people in the past who've already died. And in my heart, I'm like, I wouldn't want anybody to suffer for all eternity. I know that's going a bit dark, but the point I'm making is when I see people, I just think, yeah, you're definitely not beyond redemption. There's definitely, no matter who you are, there's anybody can be turned around. If we look at Paul, Paul was murdering Christians. Most of us would probably say murder's wrong.
Yeah.
Most of us probably wouldn't have murdered somebody, but Paul, you know, oversaw many of those sorts of things, and yet in the end, he's wrote most of the New Testament, and being such a huge influence on us. And to be fair, most people probably wouldn't want a murderer as their leader,
Yeah.
and yet so somehow we see it in the past. So that's one thing anyway. Sorry. So that's just I diverged, but yeah, and yeah, I'm a giver, natural giver, I think as well.
Yeah. It's good to know those things about ourselves, isn't it? To really understand the value of those things. I know that I've heard loads of stories about people going through school being criticized for certain things by teachers, and it being pointed out as a flaw, when actually that's a strength in them, and that's how God's wired them together. One particular was a friend of mine, their son. She's going to be 82 on her next birthday, so she's her son is older than me. But when he was in school, she was always getting told, and it was as a negative, that he's always got people following him around. He always gets people to follow him around, and he just was such a strong leader, and it was leadership skills in him, and it was said as a criticism, and she recognized it as a good thing and made sure she shaped it in him. But yeah, knowing the things that are in us that are strengths is really important. Like maybe I could have been told growing up, oh, she's always daydreaming, she never focuses, but actually I've got a phenomenal imagination, and I can come up with random solutions for things and ideas for stories and ways of teaching because I daydream, and it's a strength. It's not a weakness, So knowing the things about ourselves that are actually put there by God it's really, really important. I think Simon, similar to you, Daniel, he's all about redemption arcs. He's of the same mind, aren't you, Simon? That no one is beyond redemption. There's always a way for someone to come to redemption. And that's what Jesus was all about as well when he was walking on earth. Is no one, the woman who was caught in adultery, so I don't condemn you. Where are your accusers? And he wasn't about calling her out what the world wanted to call her. And I just think that's beautiful, isn't it? Okay, so we're just kind of past the hour time now, so I did want to keep this just an hour tonight. So this is the exercise. So just as you go about your weeks, just expect God to speak to you in that identity, in your wheelhouse. Ask him to speak in the language of your wheelhouse more. And I definitely advise journaling it, write down what he speaks to you. And the more you pay attention to it, the more he will actually speak to you, and the more you will understand and recognize when he's speaking. And it does take practice. But yeah, just he wants to he's always speaking to us. He's always speaking to us. And what I'm going to be talking about, I think next month, I'll have to look at what other topics there are. But I think next month I'm going to be talking a little bit about what he sounds like. Like, when I say, oh, you'll recognize his voice, and he says, my sheep know my voice. Well, what does he sound like then? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And yeah, it's going to be quite fun. as well. So hopefully that's been really good and practical and a bit hands-on for you. So we didn't meet on the first Tuesday. We normally meet on the first Tuesday of a month, but we didn't. It's just been a bit of a crazy month for October. So the 4th of November, which is the first Tuesday in November, we will be meeting. So the 4th of November, and then it will be the 2nd of December, probably. And then that'll be it for the year. And then we'll see how January looks, because I don't know when the Tuesday is. And if it's too close to New Year's Day, we'll make it a little bit later and we might make it the second week. We'll just see how it goes. All right, guys. So I will let you all go. It's been lovely seeing you all again.